This is Hong Lim Park. At first glance, this might look like any other park in Singapore. But if you walk around, you'll find that Hong Lim Park has one thing that no other park has: a speaker's corner. Which means that this 2.3-acre piece of land in central Singapore is actually the only place in the country where you can legally hold a protest. Through the years, Speaker's Corner at Hong Lim Park has been home to plenty of significant events. In 2019, it hosted Singapore's first climate rally. In 2013, thousands gathered together in protest of controversial immigration policy plans. In 2009, Pink.SG made history as the first public pro-LGBT event. Speaker's Corner may have only been established in the year 2000, but the story of how Hong Lim Park became the only public speaking venue for free speech in Singapore goes all the way back to 1942. The park would start its first storytelling tradition during the Japanese occupation of Singapore. After World War II, the park was a venue for many rallies and political speeches during the country's struggle for independence. In the 1960s and the 1970s, Chinese opera performances were held at the open-air theatre. After that, it was also a popular location for cultural shows, outdoor movie screenings, and election rallies once again. Then, in 1999, a group called the Round Table came along and set some gears into motion.
It was formed by basically two Singaporeans who had studied in Australia, Raymond Lim and Tan Kim Song. The Round Table was a forum, a platform for the discussion of public policies and political matters in a non-partisan way. We had long had problems holding events. I mean, if you want to invite a special guest to come and say something or have a discussion, there was a public entertainment license at that time. It was very, very difficult. This was developed thinking that every single event they're going to hold is potentially explosive. Of course, there are many events that you hold that are not explosive in the least, not going to endanger public order, but yet you had to jump through all these hoops.
Then, in December 1998 and January 1999, Singapore opposition politician Chee Soon Juan gave two public speeches where he spoke to crowds of hundreds of people without a permit. He was jailed for 7 days for the first instance and 12 days for the second after a court found him guilty.
We began to study this a little bit more carefully to say, look, there's something obviously problematic. At the very least, why don't we open up a couple of designated gazetted spaces whereby you don't need a license. You just go and you speak. Sharon came up with the idea and we all liked it. So he and Zulkifli Baharudin, who was the president at the time, cobbled together the paper. This went out to the papers, I think on the 20th of January. 28th of January, head of public affairs at the time replied and said, look, Singapore is not ready for something like a free speech corner. We cannot risk harmony. We thought that the idea was dead. But what was really interesting was that the following month, as senior minister, Lee Kuan Yew had gone to attend the World Economic Forum. He was interviewed by a number of journalists. It was reported in the New York Times. They brought this thing up and asked Lee Kuan Yew, how about, designating places that are like Hyde Park for Singapore? To everybody's surprise, he says, yes, I think we'll probably do it. Now, of course, we all got very excited. So let's see what happens. Goh Chok Tong was then Prime Minister, was nervous about it. And then in September of 1999, he rejected Lee Kuan Yew's idea. And we thought, okay, now the Prime Minister has spoken. It's off the table again. 3 months later, he has an interview with the Financial Times. He then said, well, I think within the next few months, the government will designate a free speech space. And then we said, oh my goodness, it's back on the books again. Here we go, right? It was announced, yes, there will be a Speaker's Corner, and that will be open on the 1st of September 2000.
The opening of Speaker's Corner attracted more than 20 speakers and several hundred attendees. The launch drew worldwide attention, with at least 15 foreign news agencies reporting on the milestone event.
But having been major people pushing this particular idea, even though it didn't materialize in the form that we had expected, we should support it. And so it was decided by committee that, hey, presidents better go and make a statement. A group of 7 guys who lined up overnight. So actually I went early in the morning and I found that I was already number 8. There was a certain carnival-like atmosphere around there. And there was a nice crowd. I mean, our friends came and you had groups of people at different points.
The rules for speaking at Speaker's Corner have evolved over the years, but as of today, if you want to hold an event there, there's a few guidelines you have to follow. Speak in one of Singapore's official languages. Matters concerning religion or matters that may cause ill will between different racial or religious groups are not allowed. Do not display or exhibit items containing violent or obscene material. For assemblies or processions, only Singapore citizens or PRs may participate. You'll need to apply for a permit with the National Parks Board through the NParks website. The application process seems relatively straightforward, but sometimes hosting an event at Speaker's Corner comes with its own set of challenges.
In 2009, a couple of people got together and they decided that they needed to do something for the LGBTQ community. So they came up with the idea of asking people to wear pink and come to the park at a particular time, huddle together and take an aerial photograph every year. And the growing size of the dot will symbolize the growing acceptance of LGBTQ people in Singapore. That was how Pink Dot started.
It was the first time in a physical location you could see hundreds and then eventually thousands of people who were not only LGBTQ themselves, but surrounded by allies who had showed up in support of diversity and equality in something they really believed in. That to me is very special. I mean, the event is so complex and logistically challenging. That's something we signed up for. The things that we didn't sign up for are, every year we have our fair share of detractors, people who come out from the woodwork from all corners of society that have a lot of issues with not only just what we do, who we are, but also how we do it. We actually have these concerned citizens show up like the night before, and then they actually have shifts and then they rotate around the park in groups. They're always hanging around our power cables, our generators. So now our security, we don't hire them just for the day itself, we actually hire them 24/7. Because we keep changing up the format every year and we keep pushing the conversation along, the authorities are very nervous, and I think that is being exacerbated by all of these complaints, by all these reactions. Okay, there was one year in 2016, we wanted people to write messages of love and support on a placard. So they asked us a lot of questions. It seemed like they were going to say no entirely to the concept. And I think it's reflective of the fact that we've just grown so much and so quickly, and we are entering into all these areas that has never been done before.
SG Climate Rally started in 2019 as a group of young people who felt that not enough attention was on or being drawn to the climate crisis. We wanted to call attention to it, and what better way to do that than with a physical rally. We faced two challenges, one of which is that only citizens and permanent residents of Singapore are allowed to participate in such events. For that reason, we had to be very mindful about how we would actually police the space, because we didn't want to set up huge metal barriers and make it seem very imposing, but we also wanted to make sure that we didn't break any laws. We had to set up an entry point check-in to check whether people had pink IC before coming into the space. And the second challenge that we faced, for crowd control, we had to consider how we would manage any disagreements or disputes that happened inside the space. As the people organizing the event, we are on the hook for anything that happens inside.
Considering all these potential issues, why even hold an event at Hong Lim Park at all? What makes having a Speaker's Corner so significant?
So for many people, they are in the closet and they live in hostile environments. So Pink Dot is really the only day in the year they can truly be themselves.
And people have asked us, why not just turn it digital every year? But to me, I think there's something very special and very important about Hong Lim Park being our home, our venue, and Pink Dot being a physical event. What we've done is we've given proof that Singaporeans believe in certain causes so much that they will do everything that Singaporeans typically won't do, which is to leave their house and brave the sun and go outdoors and hang out. I think there's a certain kind of visibility that you don't get if you don't have an assembly.
I think at first we were unsure of how many people would show up. At the initial stages of the event, there weren't a lot of people at the park. And then I think at some point, for many of us, we looked around and we realized about an hour or so in that the whole park was full. That was a very electrifying, and it was a fantastic feeling for everyone. Going to the place and feeling the energy of the environment, of all these people who care about the same thing as you, cheering the same slogans. It really empowers the people who go for the event, and in that way it's important.
It's not for me to say that it's important that Singaporeans exercise their freedom of speech. I think they should have a choice. If they choose to speak, then that freedom should be there. But that's a hallmark of democracy, right? That you hear a contestation of views, you hear alternative views. I would think that if you were serious in thinking about democracy in your own country, then participation in the process becomes important. And without free speech, that participation becomes impossible.